see, are we there? Da, da, da. Still looking here for the page. I keep seeing past archived ones, but I can see it on the other monitor, so I know we're there. Anyway, let's go ahead and while I'm fiddling around with this, we can go ahead and get started with Jami Ikatni. Absolutely. We've got editorials today from the Guam Daily Post is entitled More Partnerships Needed for Additional Job Skills Boot Camps. And PDN has an editorial, Free Money Proposal. That's a reprint from USA Today editorial board. I am going to refer to it for just a moment. Most of the free money proposal that is being discussed in today's PDN editorial from USA Today is about Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang. And he's talking about a universal basic income, UBI, that would give $1,000 a month to all non-incarcerated adult U.S. citizens. And the only thing I want to mention about this is part of that one of the last paragraphs here. It's worth examining. The UBI, this universal basic income, reflects the cynicism of today's politics. It proposes giving money to rich people to avoid the label of welfare. And it implicitly buys into the argument that the government can't do anything right, so it shouldn't even try to decide how to allocate limited resources for the largest impact. Government can and should make such choices. We're the ones making the choices. It's our representatives making those choices in our name. If the problem is certain jobs disappearing, government should focus directly on the people losing those positions. If the problem is wealth concentration, it should refrain from giving more money to rich people. And if it concludes that direct monetary payments have social benefits for certain individuals, it should start small and measure the results. Yang's freedom dividend is one of those too good to be true proposals that are hard to take seriously. That's how the article ends. And it already, in the article, they cite the example of we already have a UBI in place, and that's the EITC. It works well on Guam, except it doesn't work well when it comes out of the government of Guam tax base. Come out of Guam revenues instead of elsewhere in the United States where it comes out of federal tax revenue. But it's pretty much the same thing, right? We're collecting federal taxes for our own revenue. But anyway, that is the free money proposal editorial in the PDN. Let's turn now to more partnerships needed for additional job skills boot camps. The Guam Daily Post editorial for October 1st, today. On Monday, the Guam Community College, in partnership with the Cabras Marine Corporation, launched its second ship repair transportation boot camp. It started just 6 weeks after the inaugural boot camp, which ended with the announcement that all of the apprentices who graduated had a well-paying job and a path to more education that would help them gain additional skills and secure their jobs. The boot camp is a 12-week program for trainees to learn the basics of ship repair, with the added bonus of a job waiting upon completion of the program. We need more job skills boot camps that will help our able-bodied adults gain employment or start a small business on their own. We need more camps that help people start providing small business services while waiting to get employed. Boot camps for welding, laying concrete blocks, basic masonry, basic carpentry and food services related skills, like running a food truck business or a home-based food production enterprise, are essential for a remote economy like ours. Boot camps for basic bookkeeping, lawn care management, and others would make sense too. Members of our labor force need these boot camps to get employed locally or to empower them to be their own bosses, even though they will start small. It would also be a good follow-through for the local government to start a micro-lending program for would-be entrepreneurs to buy the tools they need to launch their small business dreams. Skills learned at boot camp will be valuable for workers who can't immediately find jobs because they don't have the length of experience needed on specific trades. And unlike stateside workers who can easily hop on a bus or plane to go to another state that offers more jobs, our job seekers would have to significantly invest in thousands of dollars in airfare and temporary accommodations to relocate and find jobs in the States. It's a win for the government and for our job seekers or future entrepreneurs when the government and the private sector put their efforts together toward offering cohesive programs to encourage employment or self-employment. This is one thing GovGuam can focus its energy on. The solutions lie at home rather than spending so much time and funds on costly trips and other spending items that may make government officials feel good but leave the ones at the bottom of the workforce ladder feeling short-changed. Elected officials need to put more of our taxpayer funds where they will bring the biggest return on investment, investing on our local workforce and in our public schools. That's the editorial from the Guam Daily Post today, Tuesday, October 1st, entitled More Partnerships Needed for Additional Job Skills Boot Camps. 888-8255 if you've got a comment on today's editorial. I've got some comments here. And thank you very much for joining me. Let's take a look, see if I can find today's Facebook Live online. Let's see. I see September 26, August 25. Why? I see archived ones. I don't see today's.
It's on.
It's on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just, I don't know. Why is it that I can't see it on my Facebook? Okay, the point. Let's see if I can find it there, here, there, everywhere. Let's see. Okay. Tab. It's, yeah, it's somewhere here.
It's on.
It's on. Thank you.
Yeah.
There we are.
I'll just, I don't know. Why is it that?
Okay, we're on. Yes, I see it now. Okay. And Nate Horn says we're on. Thank you very much, Nate. And my blushing bride is watching me. Here I am at work, safe and sound. And so, what about this more partnerships needed for additional job skills boot camps? Yes, absolutely. But it also is an indictment on public education. Public education on Guam takes up half of the government of Guam budget. The part that's not already spoken for. Half of the money that's not already committed to debt service goes to the Guam Department of Education. But this is an indictment on the Guam Department of Education. It's good that Guam Community College is more flexible than the Guam Department of Education, but the Guam Department of Education is supposed to prepare our students with a large budget, all the facilities it has, and the internal organization that the rest of us kind of leave alone and let them do what they're going to do. But have they connected the world of work to the students within the system, the public they serve. To have boot camps, I mean, it's a phrase, boot camp, good, that there's a new term. But there could be education, just education. So what's the problem here? Is education, the educational system that we fund here on Guam, unable, unwilling to address these needs, real needs, head on? They don't have enough time. They don't have enough space. They don't have enough resources. They don't have enough effort. They don't have enough teachers. Are they full up with just doing what they have to do to have the students in the classes that are already there? Already cut back. How many electives? But what electives are there for the kind of real education, real life education? Oh boy, I forgot what I was talking about. Lost in a cloud of smoke. No, not here in the studio. Not on FCC's time. Not allowed on FCC time. It's one of those things. I'm a broadcaster from back in the day when you were individually licensed. It wasn't just the license of the station. If you had your hands on a board or you had a microphone in your face and no supervisor with one of those stage hooks, you were responsible before the FCC and all other federal three-letter agencies and federally funded three-letter agencies to mind your P's and Q's. But thank you very much, Real Joe. This is a reminder that it is 420. Let's see. My blushing bride says, I see you. And on the side, I've got, a post. I guess I was posting, and now it's popping up here. Okay, here we go. Public education has followed a refinement of intent. The intention of how to educate students. It goes back 100 years. To open opportunity for youngsters from diverse backgrounds, whether in farm communities, towns, or cities across the United States. Migrants coming out of rural areas and migrants coming from foreign lands. To make citizens of them and to give them the language and math and socialization skills to make them productive citizens. And this has been the goal of education going back to the 1920s. Before that, it was education that complemented the activities that they were involved in already. Child labor, whether it's farm-based or in factories, before the passage of laws restricting child labor. But education before 1920 or so it complemented child labor in the United States. Now, its education is the business of children up to age 16. Guam, I think they passed the law to 18. But that also means that as we fund this very important activity, it should be tracking the world of today, not tracking educational theory and refining its methods for its priorities from 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. Are we going to go back to industrial activity with a service sector that's larger than industrial? Tourism is the service sector. Formal technical and vocational classes were common until the 1980s, when schools began to favor more college preparatory track. Now, you know, here on Guam, we've got partnerships with GCC in our public schools. So you have culinary, there's distributive ed, there's various kinds of trades that are being taught in DOE facilities, but with the cooperation and organization of GCC. And this is really good. But this is what has to expand. Over the years, we've had programs such as Small Business Administration. And the University of Guam has a small business effort. But it's not written to reach down into 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. The lessons that are in our schools are not taught as theoretical foundations for real-life applications. How is math used in design, engineering, various design and engineering, even for computers and writing of code and writing of content for online distribution. It's not. It's just taught as a sterile subject without connection with the real world. I didn't expect the Guam Daily Post to include all of this in their editorial. It just got me thinking. And it is absolutely true that more job skills boot camps, if that's the stepping stone to get while we're waiting for our educational institution, the largest one on Guam Department of Education, and their spin-offs, which are the private charter schools, while we're waiting for them to actually address the need for skills training, at least to get people started, the young people started on examining, looking at themselves, projecting themselves into the world of work. To get started. They don't have to stay there all their lives. They're not going to be stuck. They just have to be plugged in. So I'm going to go ahead and award a blue star to the Guam Daily Post. Because indeed, and because they refrain until the very last line referencing our public schools. Very polite of them. But that's where I kind of picked up and started making my move. But congratulations to the Guam Daily Post, and thank you for speaking up and speaking out. Maybe we can develop this even further. After Exam-e-Katni, which is the examination of those editorials, in my lineup for the day, I've got a heading that's called Other Editorials and Stories Worthy of Comment. And so let's go to another one that appeared on the editorial page today. In PDN on page 20, it's by guest columnist Pilar Laguana. You know her as long time friendly face down at GVB, now the CEO, president. Her column, Tourism Works, is entitled, Share Only Factual Information About Dengue. You know we're going to get back around to the story about dengue, right? But here in Tuesday's PDN, she writes about how on Friday, GVB brought together more than 150 GVB members, industry stakeholders, and government officials for a briefing on dengue virus. at Hilton Guam Resort and Spa. GVB team felt it was important to facilitate a gathering where members of the industry could learn more about this issue directly from the experts to minimize panic or the spread of misinformation. And she goes through and thanks the governor and Dr. Thane Hancock from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, and about how GVB has been working closely with the governor and government agencies to understand and proactively address this situation. And then she goes on to continue that usual drumbeat. It is business as usual. I mean, these have been the headlines for the last several days. It's the same stuff that's been rolled out all last week and over the weekend, right? We've all been doing this. And then she says, we've received only a few inquiries and have seen a few social media mentions as of press time. We are encouraged that our hotel and airline partners are not experiencing group cancellations. Guam remains a safe destination, and we are ready to receive travelers with our warmest Hafaday spirit. We thank our stakeholders for working with us and rallying behind our government's efforts. It will take our entire community working together to be successful. Thank you. Absolutely. However, I recognize that GVB is a Guam tourism marketing agency that also funds local beautification and local promotional events. Their stock in trade is our image. So when GVB admonishes us to share only factual information about dengue, she fails to add that some missing factual information is the ground zero. Here's one example. The ground zero of each of the local 12 cases. Isn't that factual information that's known by the government? But she's not saying, let's have the factual information. She's saying, let's not, let's just stick to the factual information that you're being given. But we don't know where each of those local 12 cases is. Let's get back to this after the break. Yeah, I can take a break here. Let's take a break here. It's 4:31, and we'll be right back with more about GVB and sharing factual information about dengue here on Tall Tales.
Looking to relocate your business? Prime Space is available at the Camacho Landmark Center at the intersection of Marine Corps Drive and Chalon, San Antonio, next to Personal Finance Center. Located in central Tamuning, close to the airport, hotels, major shopping, restaurants, financial institutions, the hospital, clinics, schools, and GovGuam and federal agencies. Your business can experience the benefits of this first-class commercial facility. Join other successful Guam businesses who have moved to this modern multi-purpose commercial center. Call Carlos Camacho, 300-7744 for more information.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla. Try their featured special for October, Taiwan-style beef noodle soup. Beef shank and tendons slowly simmered in a rich Taiwanese-style soy-based broth. Served over noodles with bok choy and cilantro. Available in Agotnya and in Tumon and at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you for tuning in online. Let's continue with this story about share only factual information about dengue. And I've got a phone call. Oh, I like that. Let's see. Okay, I will continue with this, but let's find out what's shaking online here first. Line 1, you're on the air. Thank you for calling Tall Tales.
How you doing, Darryl?
I'm doing okay. Who's this?
This is Francis.
Hey, Francis, welcome. Welcome.
Listen, I just wanted to get this off my chest. I hear you talking about GVB and how they're sponsoring the beautification program here on the island, and
Yes.
and other activities.
Yes.
You know what? I just wanted to bring this up because if they have brochures, for tourism and promoting tourism to Guam, I'm trying to figure out. A whole bunch of us are trying to figure out who's responsible for all the bathrooms that are on island, around the island, like in Inarahan Pool, where the tourists are always stopping by, to cool off, and then there's Agate, and there's Marisu and Umatic, and I was just wondering, are they also responsible or helping out with keeping out with the latrines, the bathrooms,
Yeah, actually, I was going to get to that in just a moment because back on Saturday, you've brought up several items over the past days you've been calling. I've got them listed here. You asked about, let's see, 60-day rule, and you asked about immigration control, and I'm going to be getting to these. But thank you very much. I really appreciate your kind of poking me here and asking for, for me to include in my comments how this whole thing hangs together, because it does. It kind of hangs together, and we enjoy it. This is our island, and we do enjoy it. But is there still a problem with the bathrooms down south in the tourist areas? We got a bad line here. Can you hear me, Francis? Yeah, I think the line's too noisy, Real Joe, and it was staying on. Anyway, I want to thank you. Back on September 28th, that was this past Saturday, in the PDN on page 10, GVB approves $2.7 million for Tumon maintenance. And so during their board meeting on Thursday, they approved $2.733 million for Tumon maintenance projects. The work includes sidewalk cleaning, additional street and median lighting along Pali San Vittoris Road. New median lighting will include interchangeable colors to celebrate different festivities and project GVB-approved light displays according to board documents. They also approved $200,000 in travel for marketing-related purposes over the next 3 months. Bureau representatives and others will travel to Japan, Korea, Singapore, China, Taiwan, Florida, Thailand, and the Philippines for a variety of exhibitions and events to promote Guam as a tourist destination. And then visitor arrivals look strong. January to September this year are up by 6.6% compared to the same period last year, 24.2% more visitors from Japan than last year. Arrivals from Korea declined slightly, 2.5% fewer than the same period last year. Now, this is in addition to, you may remember, they had put out contracts for the cleaning of 14 bathrooms, I think it was, and I think it was like $400,000 a quarter. Now, whether they have extended this or not is not in this article, but they put out a bid, and I think they're getting ready to award it, which is to clean all of the roadsides, trim the grass, and do that maintenance all up and down. It's from like the Dedido public market, the new market up there on the corner of Fatima Street and Marine Drive, down, I think, to Seti Bay Overlook, and it might include the Inarahan pools and around. That's for the grass cutting. I know all up and down Marine Drive, that's all being taken care of by Tourist Attraction Fund that's controlled by GVB. Now, this could be, very effectively changed by the legislature to change the amount of tourist attraction fund that goes to GVB and to put it at at Parks and Rec, and have Parks and Rec spend it as contract money for maintaining the public parks. But for some reason in the past, and it may be because of the ease of transferring money, the governor's transfer authority, it may be that it is safer to administer the money through GVB, which is an autonomous agency, and the funds go directly there, and they go directly to the uses that are identified by the board because of the lack of discipline by our elected governor and legislature. And so it shouldn't be GVB. It should be the people of Guam through their elected representatives and through the line agencies that is active in getting our roadsides clean and our the public parks clean, because those parks are not just for the tourists. They are for us. And to imply that we'll only clean the bathrooms if the tourists, are going to be using them is really a slap in the face of us. And it's our government that's making these decisions or failing to follow through on the promise of service. It's become normal, and it's a shame that this is the way that we run our government. And so I'm not even done with this article, but we have another call on line 1. Joe, welcome to Tall Tales.
Dal, thank you so much for saying that. It's a slap in the face. This thing about GVB, the name itself says they're an authority. And are they really autonomous or semi-autonomous?
Well, they're pretty autonomous. The board is the one that there's funding that is assessed, and the monies go directly to them to appropriate. But then the legislature is somewhat involved. It has to every year.
Aren't they political appointments? The top people in the GVB, aren't they political appointments?
Well, they're elected. The board is elected by the membership of the Guam. They're elected and appointed, but it's a mix. It's a mix, and it seems to work. But it's a shame because it means that the government itself doesn't work. If you catch my drift on this.
I think there needs to be more participation from the public and to be encouraged to participate because what is their formula? If they're so great at, shouldn't they be predicting where the market might be going or where will decrease? Were they there? They seem to be confused or not in the they weren't given the memo when Japan was decreasing as a market. So what is the target market right now for Japan?
The Bureau is not able to kind of jump in the way and stop market slides. All it can do is promote and help the communication. But it even was spending some money to simply give free trips to travel agents and to come to Guam, and to airlines. It gave them a subsidy to sweeten the bottom line for adding seats. But it doesn't have real control over what makes people travel. And also, it's a competition, right? The Japanese can travel anywhere in the world they want to go. They don't have to just board a plane to Guam, and so they're doing their best to stay ahead of the trends, and they've been pretty good at it over the years.
Wait, they're still travel agents that get free trips in order to understand the market. I thought they did away with most of the travel agencies when the latter 90s, early 2000s?
In in the U.S. market, yes, but not in Japan, where many of the trips are provided as perks, company perks, that a company would have an agency, a travel agency that's affiliated with it, and they send some money from the company over to the travel agency, and then they give these trips out to their employees as a benefit for having worked for so many years, 5 years, 10 years. And so they get a trip, or they send, like, the company girls, okay, go to Guam for 3 days, have a good time, go get yourself sunburned, go do some shopping on the company dime. And it's sort of like a company benefit. It's like, in addition to your health insurance and your retirement money and your bonus pay and your holiday gifts and stuff like that, because of the competitive market in Japan for employees. So it's just another perk. We don't do that here. We don't have companies that give perks like that, except GovGuam, for senior managers.
Well,
but,
I think it was the airlines that made it really difficult for there to be travel agencies. They made it really expensive in the ticketing aspect of it. And
here on Guam, yes, but not for us residents of Guam buying tickets to go out of Guam, but not so in Japan and Korea.
What about this? So you just more or less gave an assessment of the GVB. Should there be more assessments more often, like grade them A, B, C, D? If we feel as though something they're doing is a slap in the face, shouldn't we have a grading system for them?
I think you misunderstand me, Joe. The slap in the face is that our elected leaders, governor and legislature, can't seem to manage tax money well enough to do this job themselves, that they have to give it off to that they have to depend on GVB, and that has more discipline, because the investors in the big hotels down in Tumon, those investors are sitting on the board, or they are pressuring the board and the staff of GVB to pay attention to what's going on, and really pay attention. That's why they are more efficient and they are more effective. And that's why even the government of Guam gives them the hotel occupancy tax to allocate among its uses. And some of those uses come back to covering the butts of the government of Guam.
So the assessment is the GVB, in effect, although they are political appointment, the top position of political appointments, overall, the agency or organization has a function or a purpose, which is to help to maintain discipline, and it's proven in certain ways that they help to maintain discipline against overspending, underspending.
Well, what they do is they provide a service, and they provide service to the companies, to the investors who have invested in our tourism plant, and it gives the investors a chance to directly influence how the tax money that they're paying into a GovGuam fund, which is hotel occupancy tax, how that money is going to be used.
Too big.
I'm sorry?
Is there a way to determine whether GVB is getting too big, or if it's just the right size? How do you do that assessment? Well,
I think it's probably getting more money than the industry needs, because the government of Guam is not spending tax money on the things that outside of the tourism industry that we ourselves use, us as residents, right? In Rahan Pool, the overlooks, our parks.
The book in order to not look bad politically is what you're saying.
No, they look good, because it's not a political disaster. Not that
the legislature, the senators and legislature are passing this responsibility. They're passing the book so that they don't look bad politically. They don't piss someone off.
But they also, so that we get better service. That's why the CCU was created, to oversee the utilities, because the the senators couldn't keep their hands off of it, and it drove the water and power system into the ground, and that's.
Do you think they could do a story on the GVB and affect everything you've just described, and to plan it out issue by issue, point by point? Because I can't help but see them as simply as political appointments with every new administration, and they seem to be getting bigger.
But you see, it's not a bad thing. It actually happens to be a bright spot in the government of Guam.
So maybe they could do a story like in the PDN or Post, exactly making your points. You know what I'm saying?
I would like to see that. I think that's where investigative journalism really can really shine. It can't be done in the context of talk radio, but print. Thank you very much, Joe, for the call. I appreciate that suggestion. It's a good suggestion. Let's have some print journalists talk about how effective GVB is in doing the things that the government of Guam can't do, isn't disciplined enough to do without that kind of a structure. It should be able to. We should have the integrity and the professionalism inside our own government without having to create these enclaves because we lack discipline, because the leaders that we elect lack the discipline to run our government effectively. I haven't gotten to the end of this yet. I've still got some to go. But it's 10 minutes to 5. Let's take a break here, and we'll come back with more Tall Tales.
30 years ago, the very first Subway restaurant opened in Guam. Now, 15 restaurants later, Subway Restaurants is celebrating this milestone with a buy one, get one free offer every weekend, starting September 14th through October 12th. Come celebrate 30 years. Enjoy your favorite sandwich, salad, or wrap, all made with freshly sliced veggies and bread baked in every store. Take advantage of this buy one, get one deal. It's Subway Restaurants' way of saying thank you, Guam, for 30 wonderful years. Subway, making what you want.
Rain. It's nature's way of cleansing the earth. Yet by the time that rainwater makes its way to your home, it may not be exactly the same as nature created it. A Kinetico water treatment system can improve the quality of the water you and your family drink and use throughout your home, so you can be sure your water is clear, clean, and fresh, just as nature intended it to be. Kinetico, for refreshing ideas on water.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Darryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. He'll be back next Monday. Yeah, 6 days. And let's see. Taking a look. Yeah, here we are. Taking a look at some of my own posts keep popping up on this page. I don't know why it is. It's something Facebook does. Anyway, let's continue with this. Share only factual information about dengue. So, yeah, as much as I think that she's just a babe, Pilar LaGuardia has been since she was a babe. She's still a babe. But even at that, when she says, share only factual information about dengue, it makes me think about the facts that aren't being shared. And the first one was, as I started to say, where exactly is ground zero for those 12 cases? And if there's multiple ground zeros, where are those multiple ground zeros that public health has been addressing with its contractors to go out and spray and with teams to go around 600-foot radius from where those people live? And the reason is so that people can take heightened precautions. Maybe the people that are within those 600-foot radiuses are already informed, because there have been people coming out knocking on doors and whatnot. But nothing has surfaced. Nobody's calling and saying, yeah, I'm over here and they've been through my neighborhood. There's nothing in the media about this. about the specific areas, except two, right? There's one in Mingilao that was 300 some acres involving 82 houses, and then the two schools, or three schools, Agada, Harvest, and was it Orchard? The three schools, right? The ones that were closed. Also, that we want the tourism sector workers who live in those areas to prevent them from bringing dengue into Tumon, Tamuning, and Micronesia Mall areas. Right? I mean, if somebody contracts dengue, where do they go to work? Where do they travel to? Not that we need to know, but if we don't know where those 12 spots are and others where they may have been sharing, there's two people that don't stay in one place. And they're carriers. They're confirmed cases, and they may have been bit and infected the mosquitoes in those areas, and those have heightened response on the part of public health and the pest control. Now, I'm not saying that they aren't taking care of this, but we don't know, so we don't have a way to increase our activities in those areas or adjacent to those areas. The GVB president might also expound on the CDC and CNMI Health Department travel advisories, and whether Guam is also advising visitors to bring repellent with them or to ensure local availability of mosquito repellent for our visitors. Our tourism industry is too valuable to not make these gentle suggestions. But she's not talking about whether that factual information is being shared. She might also urge public health not to wait for the end of Friday afternoon for a weekly update on whether there's new cases. That happened last week, and we only just found out in a story over the weekend that they are only going to update weekly. These are factual information that she and the rest of the government can share about dengue that they're now keeping from us. So I don't appreciate being lectured about sharing only factual information about dengue when the factual information about dengue is not being shared with us. Do I make that point? Okay, that's that. Now, did you see where President Trump signed a bill for Medicaid? The one that we've been asking for. Governor went and appealed to Mitch McConnell at the Senate, please pass this bill. And we know that the president would sign it, right? And so we open up the Guam Daily Post today on page 6, and here's the headline. Trump signs bill for Medicaid, but only $100,000 remains. Wow. There's very little Medicaid money left for Guam to claim from its allotted Affordable Care Act funding, according to Tess Archangel. At the time, back in June, when the disaster aid bill was signed, the Guam didn't have to spend because the amount of money was, the local sharing was changed from 55, the subsidy was changed from 55% to 100%. At the time, $45 million in Medicaid funding was still available to Guam. In July, GRMC received $25.8 million in Medicaid reimbursements. Guam Memorial Hospital got $855,000. Now there is roughly $100,000 left to last through November 21st. So there's all this brouhaha to get the extension, but there's no funds left to distribute. We've spent them all. Because that's the rate we were spending the money. 100% local from here on out until November 21st. We've already spent it on health care on Guam. And 26 times went to GRMC than to GMH. How did that happen? That's the real story. Also, the senators were not told about this in the approval of the 2020 budget. So be looking for a real whack. If we've spent $45 million since June, so what's going to happen here? This is big money. And it's going to swing back around and knock somebody silly because they didn't account for it. What is the impact on the 2020 budget for having spent already all the money? And I'm not saying it went to anything wrong, but we didn't account for it. We've got more coming up. We're going to talk about national health insurance, might be good for capitalism, and GMH's ER is full and still sending patients to the other hospitals on Guam. Stay tuned. Come on back and after the Fox News and our halftime show here on Tall Tales. It's a minute before 5 o'clock, and we are about halfway through with our show today, and I'll be looking for you on the other side here on Tall Tales.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The president's attorney is served. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The Democrat chairman of 3 House committees issuing subpoenas to President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, demanding he turn over documents on his interactions with the Ukrainian government, part of their impeachment inquiry. Giuliani says he's not sure if he'll comply.
I'll kind of like go through it. I'll get all my evidence together. I'll get my charts. I don't know if they let me use videotapes and tape recordings that I have. If they let me get some of the evidence that I gathered.
Giuliani appearing on Fox's Hannity. Despite being on recess, House Democrats have a busy week with impeachment proceedings.
We're going to have a series of closed-door depositions this week. Kurt Volker, the former special envoy, is going to come in on Thursday. And on Friday, we're expecting a closed-door hearing with the Inspector General for the Intelligence Community, Mike Atkinson. That's going to be a closed session. And one of the most important things this week is we're going to hear from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in a press conference the middle of the week on Wednesday. She usually doesn't have a press conference in the middle of a recess, but that will be different this week.
Fox's Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. You've heard, no doubt, the whistleblower in the Ukraine phone call matter had no firsthand knowledge of the call. Turns out they didn't need to. According to revised guidelines from the Intelligence Inspector General's office, the change made only days before the whistleblower's complaint was filed. Republicans demanding to know who made that change and why. The Taliban has staged a multi-pronged attack on a police district headquarters in a northern province in Afghanistan. 11 policemen reported killed. Rescue crews in Taiwan are still searching for people who may be in the water after a large bridge collapsed and sent a tanker truck plunging into the bay, crushing several boats. 11 people are feared trapped in one of them. Asian stocks closing Tuesday mixed. Dow futures are trading more than 100 points higher. America is listening to Fox News.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Kelaguen Hapa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Get the latest updates as Blake and Mike break down the upcoming action. Get your game on with the boys on the hotline, 888-TALK, or sound off on Facebook Live at thepoint.gu. League members get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on the Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA.
federal government has awarded 3 contracts for the construction of about 65 miles of new border wall along the Rio Grande River in South Texas. Price tag more than $812 million. A new Florida law which allows well-trained teachers to carry guns in schools takes effect today.
Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill into law in May. It comes less than 2 years after the deadly high school shooting in Parkland, where 17 people were killed. The law builds on a Guardian program adopted by school districts after the massacre, permitting teachers who volunteer to be armed to carry those guns on school grounds. Many of the state's districts have backed away from participating in the program in favor of having trained officers on campus. That includes several of the state's largest districts. Any teacher that does carry a weapon must be trained by law enforcement. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Jury deliberations resume in a few hours from now in the murder trial of Amber Geiger, the former Dallas police officer charged with killing her upstairs neighbor. She says she entered his apartment by mistake, thinking it was hers, and mistook Botham Jean for an intruder. Pretrial hearings begin in Annapolis, Maryland today in the trial of Jared Ramos. He's charged with 5 counts of murder. He barged into the Capital Gazette newspaper and shot 5 staffers to death, according to the prosecutors. Baseball begins its postseason tonight.
It's simple tonight for the Washington Nationals and the Milwaukee Brewers. Win and you're in. The Nats tapping Max Scherzer for the start on the mound for the right to face the L.A. Dodgers in the NL Divisional Series.
I put myself in this position to be ready to be able to give whatever I need to give to the team.
The Brew Crew missed out on the World Series by 1 game last October. They'll give the ball to Brandon Woodruff on the bump.
You know, I'm just going to take the ball, and I'm going to stay in and pitch as long as I can until they, take the ball away from me.
First pitch coming up in the National League wildcard game at 8:08 p.m. Eastern Time from Nationals Park. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Water. It covers nearly 3/4 of our Earth. From vast oceans to millions of rivers and streams, we're all concerned with protecting our world's water. But none is more important than the water you and your family drink and use throughout your home. A Connecticut water treatment system can improve your water so that your family is using the best water in the world. Connecticut, for refreshing ideas on water.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Chili's Grill and Bar is now open at the 2nd floor of the Two Sands Plaza.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
Come and see what the buzz is all about. Grab your friends and savor their sizzling fajitas, big mouth burgers, and fall off the bone smoked ribs while sipping on their world famous Presidente margaritas. Treat yourself to an elevated experience at Chili's and feel why they're like no place else. Now open on the 2nd floor of Two Sands Plaza. Together, we Chili's.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back next Monday. 6 days. Hang on. We'll get there. Happy to be with you. Thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon and enjoying the show. You're welcome to call 888-8255 to join the conversation. You can join us on Facebook Live. And you can... Well, there's visuals, but also you can go to Facebook Live and get it on your personal device by digital link if you're not next to old-fashioned broadcast radio. Before the news, I was taking a look here at some of the other topics. Interesting newspaper today, but we also have a hearings coming up here. So let's talk a little bit about this. National health insurance might be good for capitalism. A Bloomberg opinion that was included in today's Guam Daily Post on page 18. I'm not going to read the thing out to you, but Noah Smith from Bloomberg Opinion talks about how national health insurance might be good for capitalism. And he goes through this. And you know, this is Bloomberg is a businessman's rag, right? It's journalism for businessmen. And Noah Smith goes through and explains how national health insurance might be good for capitalism. Obamacare could be good for capitalism. State level universal health insurance may be good for capitalism. And it goes through. And I'm not going to read, I'm referring this to you if you're interested at all in the mechanism, how this can be, how this can possibly be, without being saddled with positions taken by certain people, certain political leaders. You know, the people who have been against Obamacare because it was Obamacare, okay? Because it was a Democrat idea. Let's and I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to kind of bounce off this article to say that insurance is in the private sector. Right now, consider how much health care is government, direct provision by the government. That is not being handled by the private sector. Medicaid and Medicare, MIP appropriations when we had them locally, Department of Interior grants to GMH, GMH subsidies from our local taxes, GMH and public health, the cost of direct provision of health care at those facilities, and government tax breaks, GovGuam tax breaks for investment in health facilities, which include GRMC and the investment breaks, the investment incentives in the federal tax code. The more money spent on investment in health care, it's a write-off. It's the incentive to invest. And those are all in health care. Also, there's at the federal level, there are billions of dollars being spent in research and development of new products, in grants given to research universities and institutes all across the country. And the results of that research, because it's partnered with private money for R&D, gets picked up and patented. And then the companies, the pharmaceutical companies, make business with that result. Billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars go to financing R&D, research and development, to progress the state of healthcare, the technology of healthcare and pharmaceuticals. But it's delivered through private means, right? Our government of Guam could locally pass universal health insurance like Hawaii or Massachusetts. Or it could be something that's patterned after Obamacare, which still relies on insurance company utilization review instead of a government bureau. You want a good example of a government bureau that does directly administer health care and recover cost? Just take a look at GMH's fee schedule and GMH's medical billing. That is how government handles it. That's why Medicaid, Medicare is very practiced. And that's a government system. But national health insurance like Obamacare, like the health insurance in Massachusetts and Hawaii at the state level, and could be here on Guam, if we would require employers and workers to carry health insurance, would route that health care through health insurance companies that would administer the mechanism for paying for health care, and would provide much peace of mind and better health for many, many people who now wait until they have to go through the ER. Okay, that's the argument, right? Sometimes it's not explained well enough, and it's just sort of seen as black and white, that we should let. And there may be somebody here on line one who wants to tell me what's what. Real Joe? Let's see if there's somebody here who wants to debate me on this one. It could be. Or maybe they want to say something else. It dropped. Oh, I just thought maybe it was somebody who wanted to, pick up the dogmatic challenge, the theology of government and insurance. But it might be. There might be somebody there. Oh, Joe is here. Joe, welcome back.
This is a partisan issue, is it not? It's a clear definition between Democrats and Republicans.
No, I don't think there's. I think we're Americans. I think that we have a different approach, and sometimes we have different roosters, But Americans of good faith want this country to progress. And
yeah, but Darryl, I like to believe that, except for the most far left partisan factions of the liberal Democratic Party, that eventually will have more and more influence over local Guam politics. Eventually, and
more so than the extreme right. The extreme right already pushed back the Guam buildup by a year. Okay, and it's not the extremes. The extremes are not the answer. But that's why.
That's really Trump. I mean, you can't be blamed for Trump, because he's not your conventional conservative.
But he is the extreme.
I see what you're saying. I see where you're going there. He's extreme, but he's a different type of. Before he was a Republican extreme, he was a Democrat extreme. So,
but he's extreme, and I'm saying is where the solutions are where we hammer them out in the middle.
I see what you're saying. So you think there will be a middle, except for the part where, isn't there the rule that once you establish an office in government, it's very rare that they close that office? The only office I've ever heard was closed was the office of the Soberano here in Guam.
Yes, and I'll give you that, and that's why when I'm criticizing our own government leaders, I am not saying Democrat leaders or Republican leaders, and I'm a Democrat, but I'll tell you what. The same problem is perpetuated regardless of party. And that's why I want to drill down to the problem and pose solutions, and not start placing blame and painting somebody with gold paint and saying, oh, these are the anointed ones, these are the angels, and those are the devils. That doesn't help us to understand anything.
Isn't the problem that it's actually steering more towards more spending and bigger government?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It may be that we need to whatever money we've got, we need to spend it better to solve problems and not just stir around the same problems.
I could agree, Darryl. For all intents and purposes, I consider myself left-leaning, except for some of the Republican platforms. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm listening.
For example, the issue of abortion, where men dare not have any right to question or to learn the issues of abortion simply because they're born male. How dare you, male, ask any questions about the female health or productive health, or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, yes, I understand. Wow, Joe, it's a good thing that that your line dropped off, because I'll tell you what, it's really hard for me to respond to what you're saying without getting my butt kicked every which way when I walk out the door here. So let's go to line 2 and welcome another Tom. Hi there, another Tom. Hello, line 2. You're on the air. Hello? Hello?
Must have dropped.
Must have dropped just
Can
when
you
I
call
punched
back,
the button.
sir?
Yeah, if you want to call back, another Tom. Thank you so much. Joe, you're back.
Hello?
Yep.
I'm back?
Yeah,
Sorry, I wasn't sure. Did I hang up or did something happen?
Something happened. It just dropped off. But, you know, I'm happy I have phones today, not yesterday. So
It's not like I offended you or anything.
no, you just disappeared. That's all.
Oh, yeah. So it seems as though there's more and more partisan issues to be found. And insurance seems to be one of those that tug at the heartstring, primarily because it always goes back to, you want to charge a nun for contraception? Last time I checked, a nun should not be paying for contraception. You know what I'm saying? Or you want to spend how much money on abortions year by year? Should we have some sort of analysis or, breakdown of what this is about? Or is that taboo? You know what I'm saying?
Sure, but let me ask you something. When you pay your taxes, do you put down on your check, however, I don't want my money spent on this and that and the other?
I'd love to be able to.
Right, but
yeah.
But that was settled in the Civil War. You know.
I would like to see. I want 100% of all my taxes to go to the roads, the infrastructure, the water, and the electrical lines, and the telephone lines. You know, all those. But anything beyond that, I prefer that it is hammered out detail by detail by our legislature.
What about national defense? Don't you want your taxes to go to national defense? How about the police department, the fire department?
That's an awesome question. The question is, how much should be spent on national defense? And then there you get the issue of black something projects, skunk works, where they develop the technology that has kept us dominant militarily worldwide. Was it the SR-71, the stealth bomber?
Nah, it's just that we keep investing in updating our military technology and hardware, and we keep throwing a lot of money at it. You know, it wasn't cheap to put thousands of intercontinental ballistic missiles into place. It's not cheap to fly B-52s around all day long, you know, on patrol.
Debate, Daryl. It's a worthwhile debate that I feel as though that perhaps it's less contentious or it's easier to debate those issues than it would be to debate healthcare issues, abortion, these faith issues. You can't pray at a football game on the field because it's against the law and you're going to get arrested or you're going to get taken to court. And you're like, really? But we're the majority. Is this really considered tyranny? This is majority rules. So the majority is Christian meaning, but if we do this, we're offending the minority. So what is this tyranny of the majority? Is it really?
I hear these concerns often on talk radio, national talk radio. Of the various, whether you're talking about Fox Radio, Fox News, Fox Network, or you're talking about NPR. I hear these discussions, but at some point we have to rely on two things, just two. One is the Constitution, and the other one is the power of our representatives to hammer out the way that the rules that we're going to live by going forward. because
But Darryl,
that's all that we have holding us together, and not.
Remember how Obamacare came forward? It was Nancy Pelosi saying you got to pass it to know what's in it, and then after they passed it, we still didn't know what was in it for a long time. You know, whenever someone says you need to pass it to know what it's about, I start to get suspicious and say, well, what were these officials elected for? Okay, you have thousands of pages of legislation. Then we still have to have some form of an educated guess, or there needs to be some sort of attention, some formula, instead of just it's just too much.
Well, Joe, let me interject something here. Back in the late 70s, there was a new think tank that jumped up and started receiving funding, and prominent thinkers started signing on to this contract with America. It's the Heritage Foundation, and I watched it grow from just a seed. It was right there in D.C., and I watched it grow and gain momentum and gain strength alongside the other established think tanks such as American Enterprise Institute and Brookings Institution, and off on the West Coast is the Rand Corporation, and there were some think tanks up in New York. These brought together an agenda, a political agenda, and then that agenda rolling forward had a life of its own, because it was they had a central a dogma or a central philosophy, and it became very influential by the time that the Republican Party gained control of the House of Representatives, and Newt Gingrich was the speaker. It became very powerful because so many Republicans had come into the Congress with this philosophy, espousing this philosophy, and they were voted in by the American people. So far so good. When the idea of how to take care of the rising cost of health care was a health industry and public financing problem for decades, but it wasn't being addressed. They just said, leave our hands off of it, let the market take care of it. However, at the same time, governments were having to shell out more, and there was lots of investment in medical care, in clinics and doctor education and facilities booming, just booming, but less people able to take care of it, and the unpaid bills were falling back onto the federal government, which was having to pick up more and more of the tab under Medicaid and Medicare, and local governments who were having to, like hospitals like GMH and public health clinics, funding them directly from local revenues. And so when the Democrats came back into power, they had this bill ready, but they knew that if they stopped and they were going to debate every little piece of it, they wouldn't get it through. They just said, we have the votes, we're going to vote it in, boom. And immediately it benefited like 26 million people, which they, even now, they can't reverse it because too many people will lose coverage, and the cost will get thrown back to the states to just eat it.
Actually, Darryl, we like to think that they can't do it, but the fact of the matter is the baby boomers are aging, and they're retiring, and the millennials don't seem to be very convinced that they need to pay into this Social Security system. And remember, all of these, I don't know whether it's Medicare or definitely Social Security, all these other things that are paid in, they are paid into in order to fund people who are old now. They're paid into by those who are young and productive now. But really, these are IOUs. They're the basic idea is that people are not going to die fast enough. Therefore, they're going to keep having to be paid out to, and there just isn't the money to be found to tax people system, with this management.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And that,
you know, the projected, they're talking about $100 trillion plus. If we don't get our act together now, in the next, was it 20, 10, 15, 20 years? I mean, it's the number is mind-boggling. So this is the primary reason why there's a strong belief we need to find a way to do it differently, which is why I think there's a lot of tolerating of Trump. Now, Trump is one of those old white guys that you never really felt comfortable around, but you know, he didn't shoot you, so you survived interaction with him when you're a kid. You know, you're not a traditional conservative because you're not a WASP, you're not a white guy, right? But you got to find a way to fit in. So I mean, people are so offended by Trump, and the younger generation, they don't know, they don't understand what it's like to be between less than 20% of the population. You know, when it was 90% plus, 90% white.
But this is kind of the point, Joe, why we can't keep talking about the problem, because that's not the problem. The problem is the wait. It's not. The problem is, we have to decide in this country whether we're going to let people just get sick and die on the streets, or we're going to cut off health care. No. It's important. Whether we're going to cut off health care at some point and say, no, beyond this, we're not going to pay for it. And this is what insurance does. But because the government is not going to say that, and they just don't. For political reasons, they keep promising and promising. And this is what we're facing with.
We can't trust, look, the government is a system of checks and balances. By definition, we're not supposed to trust, we're supposed to enact the system of checks and balances, and that's what makes it a better form of government. So the issue is that we need to do it differently, and we need to have manufacturing. Last time we checked, the only way for there to be a profit is to have something which only we can produce, which only we can provide for ourselves and for the whole world. This is the only way we can make.
Well, why would anyone buy from us if we're paying $25 an hour, and they're going to only pay $2 an hour, and they can produce the same thing? Well, that's how we got all this. That's how we got all these toys. Americans have all these toys at home, and the Chinese have the factories. They built up their economy because we bought the stuff.
We need to have new factories. We need to have intellectual property. We need to reinvest in our economy. We need to have more an increase of standard of living, and a competition which lowers the cost of living, and there's going to be a lot. There can be a lot of innovations, just like the internet and the computers, right? If we
Right, Joe, and that's why, yeah, that's right. I'm going to have to stop this. We're going to have to cut this off, but I'll tell you what. That's why I was saying at the beginning, earlier during our conversation, that it is not left or right. It is not Republican or Democrat. Listen. We have a Constitution, and we have elected representatives, and we have problems. And we've got to solve them in a way that will move us all forward and is smart and not pandering to the past.
Faith has to be part of that. Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the discussion. And that was Joe, which, I know that every time he calls, he is earnest about getting this stuff out, because it has to get out, because many people are thinking the same way. Why can't we get this thing solved? Well, we're not going to solve it before this break, so let's take a break here, and then we'll come back and see if we can't solve it afterwards.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
A while back, somebody asked me a very interesting question. If there were 4 highly valued sets of skills and I could only keep one, which one would it be? I'm Jerry Robertson. At 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, I'll tell you what those skills are and which one I'd keep.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Yeah, smack another one out of the park, because that's what we need. We need some heavy hitters to get this work done, not just stir the same stuff around. Don't you agree, Carl?
Hey, Daryl.
Hey, Carl, thanks for calling.
Sorry I haven't been calling in, but I'm usually listening. Well, I'm often listening as I'm driving around doing other things. But I just happened to be home, and I was listening to you. Well, I was actually listening while I was driving here, and then I arrived home, and I said, I think I'll call in and chime in.
Well, good.
Yeah, you were talking about medical insurance. There was a time decades ago when really all we needed to do was it was kind of like term insurance. You know, we would buy insurance for major medical catastrophes like cancer or major heart operation. And everything else was basically out of pocket. You know, like taking the kids to the doctor for, you know, fever.
Oh, yeah.
The flu, or, you know, all this other basically minor stuff.
Yes.
It was basically like how we see car insurance today. You know, you don't have car insurance that includes cracked windshield, a new paint job. You know, if you have minor rust or holes in your car, tires, tint, you know, and all this other stuff. And car insurance is very portable. You go around, you shop around, you know, 5 or 10 different companies if you want. Pick the best one with the best rate and the best coverage for your budget, and go with it. The problem with our present system is, and I read a little bit about the history of it, but it's been a while and it's kind of slipped. But there's some separation between us, we're not actually paying. We're paying through a third party, the insurance company. I saw an article one time in which they did it was a Forbes article, and they did a survey of it was some northeastern state. I don't know if it was Connecticut or Massachusetts, but they surveyed a bunch of clinics for the same identical medical procedure, CT scans. And they surveyed a whole bunch of them, you know, in the state. The prices for the identical procedure range from $1,000 plus to over $6,000 plus dollars. So the market has been just tremendously distorted, and that hasn't happened in the auto market. I need to read more about the history. I believe government got its sticky fingers in there somewhere, and the market got, you know, out of whack, but very much distorted. But anyway, I just wanted to throw in a few comments about that. We used to have a completely, entirely different arrangement as far as paying medical bills, and I think it was a better one. You know, we just had to pay for a policy that would cover major catastrophic illnesses like cancer, you know, heart disease, something that would, you know, bankrupt most people.
Yeah. Now this is what we're trying to get back to, which is right now it's pretty much a Wild West, and it's not just the insurance companies or the clinics, but also hospitals and public hospitals, and the only place where in the entire American healthcare system, the only place where there is where the costs have been boiled down to something that is not distorted is Medicaid and Medicare, and that's a government program. And the reason it's boiled down is because they have gone through and checked what does it cost to acquire a CT machine, how much does it cost to pay for techs, because of the prevailing wages in different markets. How long do the machines last? So what's their capital lifespan, given the march of technology? And they've gone through they go through all of this, the cost of pharmaceuticals, bulk purchases, but in each individual market, the entrepreneurs are allowed to set their own prices, and there's no information available to the public. You can't shop around for your for a cheaper price. And the insurance companies are affiliated. They've made their deals with certain providers, and they lock in the price. And then you're just told, okay, this is the premium cost. You either pay it, you don't pay it. And it keeps going up and up and up, and there's no downward pressure on prices.
Well, my understanding, too, is that the government comes in and they say, these are our prices we're willing to pay. If you lose money, that's your problem. This is what we're going to pay. And that's why many clinics don't accept Medicare or Medicaid. They just say, forget it. We're not going to do that.
That is the pushback. It's industry pushback.
A lot of people, that option is cut out. They go to a clinic and say, we don't accept Medicaid. We don't accept Medicare.
That's right, because
that's one of the problems.
And the government has programs like MIP and subsidies to the hospitals, subsidies to public health clinics. They'll go out and raise prices, raise the salaries for nurses, and they'll bring in doctors that are being provided by companies that charge 150 or 200% of what it would be if you were just going to hire somebody and give them a contract, straight contract. On the spot market, because the scarcity and of providers, the market is closed, so so that doctors and nurses are scarce, given the kinds of procedures they're allowed to do, and the cost of technology is high, and the cost of pharmaceuticals is high. And there's no downward pressure. There's no way to open up the floodgates and let in foreign doctors so that it depresses the price in the U.S. And it's justified by saying we need to maintain the primacy and the technical and human understanding and research in health care. So we have a better healthcare system because we know more, we've got better technology, we've got better pharmaceuticals, and the research is robust. We can make progress in these diseases that currently have no cures, or we're making cures all the time. That is what we get for having this dysfunctional, hard to pay for system. But the public interest is we're running out of money to support just health care. And so that's a public policy problem. We have to keep shelling out money to support hospitals like GMH and give subsidies and incentives and spend our Medicare and Medicaid money on GRMC, which is new and has the new technology. And we put up with whatever kind of thing they got going over at GMH because it's the only bar in town, and we don't have a grip on this so that we can be efficient and effective with the money that we do have.
Let me throw something your way, Daryl, and with your background, maybe you can tell me if I'm off base. For a brief while. 2 or 3 years, I worked in one of the Israel's companies, and it was very interesting watching some of what they did. They still own the Outrigger and the Dusitani. Mm-hmm. They own the property and they own the building, but they always contract out running of the facility to professional hotel management companies. And I'm wondering, why isn't that possible with hospitals? Why can't we work out a deal with a company that's their whole livelihood, is they run hospitals. They've got all the systems for accounting, for human resources, for inventory control, for, and on and on and on, all the complex systems in a hospital. Why can't we do that?
Here on Guam.
To someone who, that is their whole bread and butter. They've been doing it for decades. They've perfected their systems. They're not reinventing the wheel. I'm wondering, is that, why isn't that possible?
It is possible. You know how easy it would be? Imagine this. Just imagine this. If the legislature were to wake up tomorrow and somebody were to put a bill in the hopper saying the government of Guam will entertain bids for the management and operation of GMH. And we will accept those bids, and here are the specifications. This is what we want, okay? And then give us the bids. The insurance companies would raise holy hell. And what would, at the end of the day, what we would have is the management and the owner of GRMC would be the one to put up a bid on GMH operations, because GMH is being run as it has been built over the years as a government agency, and over at GRMC that none of that malarkey exists. People who are paid to make a decision, that's their salary. They make those decisions. The admin is simplified, and the medical is maximized. At GMH, the medical suffers because the admin has to be first, regardless of quality. And that is, in a nutshell, and you've heard Dr. Akimoto just scream from every time he gets to a hilltop, he yells about it.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, and this is where, GMH is being maintained by policy of the government of Guam, by the leaders that we elect every 2 years to the legislature, every 4 years to Adelup. This game keeps going on and on and on. And these are not stupid people. They know what's going on the inside. Dennis Rodriguez was the chairman of the health committee for 8 years. 8 years. And how far did we progress with him as chair? Knowing what's going on inside. Benita Manglotnia was one of the extremely bright stars of the Calvo administration, getting a handle on the government of Guam finances. And what did we end up doing? Swapping our deficits for debt, and making it so that every budget year, we were having we could cover our bills. Now, as bright as she was, and then she was moved over to GMH, and she was the one who was locking down those numbers. But not that it was her responsibility to do, but did the government of Guam become any better with increasing cost? Did it provide better service as it was claiming more and more tax money? As the tax base was growing, did it improve? Were the excesses of past years trimmed off gradually, a little bit every year, so that the government of Guam would morph into something that was more fitting for the 21st century? Or are we still carrying a design and a staffing pattern and mission statements from the 1980s? And this is where it's not the Benita Manglotnias of Gov Guam. It's not her responsibility to do this. It's the 15 people at the legislature and the one sitting up at Adelup. That's where these decisions and the leadership has to be exercised. And when they don't move, stuff just stays the same. And this is where I keep getting back around to this, because if it's private, like American Medical Clinic, they will, or GRMC, they will rise and fall based on their own internal calculations. And they seem to be making a living. But with the government of Guam, these decisions are made by the board of directors down at the Guam Congress building and the CEO over at Adelup. And the quality of what we've got going as a community rests on the quality of their work. I don't mean to just, I keep pointing the finger at them, but nothing's going to change around here until they get in gear and stop, trying to approve the regulations for Guam EPA. It's a total waste of time to approve something that would go into effect perfectly well without them lifting a finger or saying yay or nay. If there's a problem with it, say nay. But they don't have to say yay, because it actually makes it a non-law. And it's a total waste of time. It's a non-regulation and a non-law. And so even after we're done, they're not going to know how to use these regulations. It's just, we keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. I don't know if you heard yesterday, I was talking about, there was an article in PDN about a Netflix series coming up called The Politician. And it's about a high school guy who is running for office, student body president or something, and his ambition is to be president of the United States. So he's getting himself, he's sharpening his skills at the high school level, because that's where he wants to go. That's his ambition. Well, I was making the point that let's see whether his constituents are going to swallow the same kind of style that is superficial that our current leaders are displaying as the role models for this guy running for office. Or are they going to say enough is enough? We're not going to keep doing this over and over. You see what I mean, Carl?
Yeah. Thanks for your comment.
Yeah.
I'm learning as I go along. I've still got a lot more reading to do on the subject. I'm behind the curve, but you've helped me understand a few things.
Yeah, and that's what.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Carl, for the call. That's kind of why those senators have staffs, so that they can read and read and read and get to this point faster. Educate themselves. So thank you for the call, Carl. We've got a break here coming up. Let's get to our last break of the day, Real Joe, and we'll be back to wrap up today's show after this.
Chili's Grill and Bar is now open at the second floor of the Tumon Sands Plaza.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
Come and see what the buzz is all about. Grab your friends and savor their sizzling fajitas, big mouth burgers, and fall off the bone smoked ribs while sipping on their world-famous Presidente margaritas. Treat yourself to an elevated experience at Chili's and feel why they're like no place else. Now open on the second floor of Tumon Sands Plaza. Together, we Chili's.
Take Care Wellness presents the 7th Save the Susu Dance Fitness Fundraiser, October 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Teason High School. Tickets are $10 in advance, $15 the day of the event, and $5 for kids ages 6 to 12. Tickets are available at Take Care Wellness, Guam Cancer Care, and through Marissa Collins. Grand prize for the raffle is a round-trip ticket to Asia or Micronesia from United Airlines. All proceeds benefit Guam Cancer Care. This message is made possible by the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Well, it's been fun spending time on the phone with you. I really missed you guys yesterday, not having the phones apparently not working, and even now I'm having a little issue with my Facebook. But I really appreciate you being here this afternoon. And I've got thought we had a call. Dropped off.
Yeah, must have hung up or dropped off.
Oh man, no, we had like 6 minutes here. I was ready to bring you in, but I really appreciate talking with you, and call back again. Call tomorrow or call now. Yeah, I got lines going here, flashing. It's 2 hours is about as much as I can talk if there's nobody calling. It's like really the physical limit. Ray is much better at it in the morning, but he's got commercial breaks and whatnot. And so, welcome back, Joe.
So my question to you is, do you think that our hospital system would be better if Guam was an independent, sovereign nation, or would it be worse?
Wow. Big question. And the reason is we don't have a projection of how Guam's tax base would be and whether we would be getting kinds of payments for like what the FSM and Palau and the Marshals are getting for some kind of treaty revenues, or whether we would have some kind of an open business regime that would make us more like a Hong Kong, where we would be just flooded with investments because we don't have to take a backseat to the U.S. where they say, okay, you can't have that kind of tax break allowed. We don't know, and that's something that will have to be sketched out. And then only from that would we know what kind of health care system would be affordable under a different political status. And it's very complex, but this is why we have to have the kind of discussion and the kind of campaigning by the proponents in order to get the best ideas forward from each of these options of future political status, and none of them are going to be immediately implemented. It would be something that would be a decade or two in the future, and so to me the political status question is just one of asking the people who were living on the land before these outside governments came in to claim the land for themselves. Ask them what kind of a future they want for the land, so that question is answered, and then we're still going to be living in a practical world, and then we can do the hard work towards getting to in some kind of a direction. But right now we don't have a direction. There is no.
So you're an optimist about the prospects of improvement. Is what it sounds like. There's always.
I'm an optimist about people being responsible for themselves, for their own lives, and not waiting until, not just depending on a rich uncle to make all the decisions for them. I think it's very un-American to live on Guam as an American and rely on Guam being American. I think that Guam's advantages, being under the American flag, should be that it is better living here than in any of the states because of the freedoms that we have under the flag and the freedoms we have as a territory, and because we can live in a way that where we have the most flexibility to create our own future. The future in the States is already tied up. That's already spoken for. There's no change of political status. There's nothing that you can do to get out of lockstep. And here we have the opportunity to get out of lockstep and take the best of all worlds and implement it locally. If somebody would just please get their head out of their butts.
Well, so the thing is that I tend to think it's about the laws that are fashioned, but it's interesting you turn towards political status first. And so I'm thinking you believe that the political status has to be solved first, ironed out before the laws can be fashioned.
I think the question needs to be asked, and the people who need to be asked need to give an answer, and then we go from there. But all the hammering out of what we want in the future is something that has to be done by real people in real time with real blood, sweat, and tears, and real smarts, and really talking to each other, and not that it's going to be like they're going to have a vote, and then the future will miraculously appear. Nothing happens like that. You know, this isn't a cartoon, and so it's serious. But I want to approach it seriously, and I want to approach it optimistically, and I want to approach it with all of the optimism that was given to me as a birthright as an American, and having a Chamorro heritage. I think that, you know, God blessed me with this, and I think I should return the favor, not just to myself, but to everyone else who was around me. Use what I got to do something good in the world, and start right here on my own island. And everyone should be feeling like this. That's what makes me an optimist. My faith and my heritage and my nationality. And gosh, you know, I mean, God, what a perfect storm. And so, you know, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to do this again tomorrow. Thank you very much for calling over, Joe, and getting me started here. And thank you to Ray Gibson and to Bob Klitzkie for giving me this microphone and Real Joe to push buttons and keep the lights on, and you know, everyone involved, because this is fun. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock with more Tall Tales, and Ray Gibson will be here tomorrow morning at 6 to listen to your concerns, and Kevin Kerrigan will be here to tell us what's going on, what happened today that we need to know about tomorrow. So stay tuned to this station. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's just about 6 o'clock on The Point.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. HD3.
Demanding documents. I'm Jack Callahan.